you Collabcast listeners. This is Captain Dave Jackson coming to you from a very cloudy Hendersonville, Tennessee today. We've had like a week of storms, and today is just cloudy, but a week of storms 2 days ago, man, it fired up. We had lightning and all the good stuff, but luckily no damage, serious damage, nothing like that. So anyway, Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is part of Nashville. And today I can't be more excited to have with me a young lady that I've known for several years. Most of your listeners are IAOA members, and you probably know Kelly from our first year when she was just new in her business, because IAOA is 9 years old, and that's about the time that Kelly started Agency Performance Partners. So Kelly, welcome to Collabcast.
I'm excited, Dave, and good to hear that weather's doing well down there. I'm in Rhode Island, and it's a humid, cloudy, kind of gray day. We're supposed to get like 9 days straight of rain, so summer's kicking off great.
Yeah, right. So I'm used to the desert. I lived in Arizona for 13 years, and
it's a dry heat, though, Dave.
Heat.
It's dry.
Yeah, everybody says that, but when it gets the really hot, the hottest, like 118 plus, you don't go out in 118. I mean, there's crazy people, but normal people don't go out in that. And I think in the next week or so, it's going to be hitting like 113. So it's warming up. That's normal. June is actually the hottest month in Phoenix.
Oh, really?
Hotter than July or August. Yeah, most people don't know that. At least it was when I was there for 13 years. So
yeah.
But now in Hendersonville, I got to deal with the humidity again, and I don't care for that. So I'd much rather have the dry heat and deal with 113, because you learn to love your air conditioning for a few months, and the rest of the year is beautiful. So
well, I feel like it's like the reverse, because in New England, right, like we don't go out in the winter because it's too cold, but we're out all summer.
Yep.
Where you guys are out all winter and you like hunker down all summer, right?
So it's the opposite. Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny little reverse engineered American thing. And
Yeah.
well, and now you only have to deal with one time zone. You don't have to deal with two like Arizona has, depending on the time of year.
Right. And they don't change their clocks in Arizona. People think that's weird, and it's only like one of three areas in the country. Hawaii's one of them, a little bit in Indiana, that doesn't change their clocks during the year like everybody else does. So anyway, enough about weather. We want to hear about you. I know our listeners want to hear all about you, what's new, and where you've come from, and what you're doing now, and the future, and all of that. So I like to start with all my guests from the very beginning. Tell us about you. You live in Rhode Island. You know what? I've been to 42 states out of the 50, and Rhode Island is one of the 8 that I have not been to, because you don't like drive through there, or you don't connect there on a flight. You don't really go there unless you have a reason to go there.
Yeah.
So are you from Rhode Island, or where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up, and where were you raised?
Connecticut. But gotta remember, New England, like, it's just this like little conglomeration. So 241 Rhode Islands fit in Texas. Little known trivia fact.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're 42 miles wide, 47 miles tall. So when people say they've never been to Rhode Island, it's not shocking. But I am literally 55 miles south of Boston.
Right.
So I can get to Boston, in a little over an hour based on traffic. We're about 2.5 hours from New York City. So it's like really prime location. And then because we're just long and skinny, we're all just coastline. So like I see the ocean when I go to the grocery store. So it's a kind of a cool place to live when you think of it from that perspective.
So how did you land in Rhode Island from Connecticut? What that road looked like?
Well, I was in my 20s and, growing up in Connecticut, went to school in Boston, came back home, had a job and did everything. And then all my friends started getting like married, and I was like, I think I just got to get out of here. And so I took an opportunity that was just over the border, again, no more than an hour from where I grew up. And within 2 weeks of moving here, I met my now husband. So it was just kind of one of those weird life things that happen. And now I've been in Rhode Island for probably 15 years, and but actually looking to move to Florida in the next few years, because I would love to save some state income tax, probably like you do in Tennessee.
Yeah. So work basically took you to Rhode Island.
Yeah, work took me to Rhode Island, and I think I was just looking for a change, right? Like you ever get to a place in life where you're like, this wherever I'm at, like everybody's kind of doing their thing and they're going down their paths, and so things had started changing, and I was like, think it's just time for a new start. And again, it wasn't like dramatic like moving to Guam. It was just an hour away, but kind of changed everything for me in a lot of ways.
You're the only person that I've heard, I would guess, in the last, I'm old, so the last 50 years, who said the name Guam. I haven't heard Guam in like forever. So, but it is a U.S. territory.
Like, it's like Puerto Rico.
Yeah. It's a U.S. territory. So Guam's part of the Philippines. Providence is the biggest city in Rhode Island, correct?
I believe so. So another fun Rhode Island fact: we're the smallest state, but we have more people than the whole state of Wyoming.
How many people do you have?
Just shy of 1 million.
Wow. No, I didn't know that.
We're the most densely populated state.
Right.
And we have one electoral college vote, just like Wyoming.
Oh, be darned. Yeah. You know, it's full of all sorts of facts and tidbits.
All sorts of Rhode Island facts.
Well,
and Family Guy is technically from Rhode Island. And every Farley Brothers movie has had one scene shot in Rhode Island because they're from Rhode Island. So Dumb and Dumber has a little place of Rhode Island's heart.
Okay. A little bit like Homer Simpson, Springfield, Missouri. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sweet. So you went to college in Boston.
Yep.
What did you get? Did you get a degree?
I did. This is going to date me, though.
I don't need to know the dates. Just
no. The reason it's going to date me was because I got a degree in marketing, but I went to Bentley University, which is like it's a business college, and so I got a special degree in what's called relationship marketing. So this is how old I am. Are you ready?
Yep.
Do you remember when like the cards first starts coming out? Like you go to the grocery store and you get your loyalty card. Yeah. You went to CVS, you have your loyalty card.
For sure.
So these were like brand new, and so they specialize in how to use all this data that they were now collecting on customers. But it was like all brand new, so there was no textbook. So we had to do like live study out there, and it was very cutting edge. And now today you think about it, it's like how far we've come with like, you know, if I say something right now, it's going to pop up my social media news feed, you know, 10 seconds later. And I just kind of giggle because, I mean, it became outdated pretty quick.
That's funny. Yeah, I remember those days. And now everything, you know, the next generation is AI and machines are going to think for us and, you know, all of that. So here we go.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel real unhip.
Yeah, for sure. So here's what I usually do. I usually scan most people's, my guess, LinkedIn profile. Yeah. That gives me a little bit of background. I don't usually do too much because this is like raw live TV. So there's a couple things on your LinkedIn profile though that I'm pretty sure I don't know, but I know our listeners don't know. So the first one is Dog Mom to America. Tell us what that means.
So our dog's name is America, and so we're on our second dog, and COVID happened, and we decided we were going to get a dog. So just like everybody else in America, so we went online and we saw this cute little dog in Texas. She was in a kill shelter, and there's a group in my town that rescues dogs from kill shelters. So they rent like huge vans and they'll drive overnight. It's called Midnight Rescue. They drive down, grab 25 dogs out of a kill shelter, and people sponsor them and adopt them sight unseen. So
wow, that's cool.
Well, her name on the website was Molly Moo, and I was like, that's definitely not a name we're going to have. And so I get to go pick her up, and I'm the last person there. I'm like, well, where's Molly Moo? And they're like, we have one dog left. Her name's America. And I was like, well, here's the picture, and it says Molly Moo. And they're like, oh, well, they just gave her that name. We nicknamed her America at the shelter. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, that's a great name for a dog, so we're going to call her dog America.
America's stuck. Huh. What kind of dog is America?
Great that this is an insurance podcast. She was unknown, but she's like 98% pit bull, of course.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Don't let your homeowner carrier hear that, right?
No. But she's the most timid dog you'll ever meet in your whole life. So we're very blessed to have Miss. So she goes to doggy daycare every day, and she's got boyfriends. So she's Miss America.
Gotcha.
And when she's bad, she's America.
So she goes every day?
Yes, my dog is a very gifted little critter.
That's funny. Okay.
She's also the Walmart greeter. She greets every new dog and shows them around to make sure that they're taken care of.
Very nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I have zero clue of what it means, OT Splat Point Slayer.
Well,
Okay.
actually, I should probably update this. I used to go to Orange Theory Fitness,
OT is Orange Theory. Okay.
and so you get splat points.
Point Slayer.
Yeah,
Splat.
so you get
What's Splat? I get the Point Slayer.
Yeah, so it's called a splat point. Every time your heart rate goes over a certain amount for a minute, you get points. And so the goal. But I need to change it up. I'm more of a Pelotoner now.
Are you? Mm-hmm. That's where we're going these days. Everything's interactive. It's online. You know, you don't have to leave your house. And
Well, they have them in a lot of hotel gyms too, which is very
Yep.
easy for me to do.
So it's like going to a hotel with Netflix. You log into your account, and
Exactly.
it's just like you're at home. Off you go.
Mhm.
Yep.
Exactly.
Do you like it that way? Are you committed to it?
Yeah, I'm committed to it. So every day, no matter what, every single day, I do 45 minutes of something, whether it's
Wow.
just taking a walk. Just keeps my head clear and like keeps you in the rhythm of it, and
Cool.
I just find I feel better when I do it. So even today, I came in off the red eye, and I got on the treadmill and just walked and checked my email for 45 minutes. It's just something to keep you active, because it's real easy when you live your life on the road to become pretty sedentary.
Right, for sure. That's smart of you. It's good that
Yeah.
you recognize that. So those are some of the personal things. So you have a husband and a dog, no children, correct?
No, they were never something I thought I wanted, and every time I'm around one, I'm reminded why I don't have one.
So I have grandkids, and I tell everybody grandkids are so much better than kids.
I think I would get down with that. Like, I
Yeah.
think I could be I mean, we've got tons of nieces and nephews that we spend time with, but, and I'll be honest, like, I love what I do. I think it would be very difficult to pick between kids and doing what I do and
For
living
sure.
on the road. And
Yeah.
so it wouldn't be fair to them, and I would say it wouldn't be fair to me to not live what I'm really passionate about either. So
Yeah, you'd
I
have to.
literally have a husband who agreed.
Yeah, you'd have to make sacrifices. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimate sacrifices for sure. So,
Sure.
very cool. So let's go move on to your work career, because that's probably how majority of the people are going to hear you here, know you, is because of your work career. So, I'm not going to go back to the beginning. I think you worked in the banking industry early on, right?
I did. I was a teller, and I cross-sold from the teller line because, again, I'm old, so there was no such thing as a debit card when I first started.
No, I no debit cards, no ATMs. You had to go to the bank drive-through or walk in 100% of the time. There was nothing
Cash your
online.
paycheck. There was no direct deposit.
No direct deposits, nothing electronic. So I'm from the pre-internet era. So, I went to college in the 70s. So I tell people about how it was, and they're like, you guys are goofy. I'm like, that's how, that's how it was. You dealt with what you could. You wrote checks. When I was in college, I had to write a check because our cafeteria in the dorm was closed on Sundays. So everybody ordered pizza delivery. Domino's was still there around at that time, some locals, and you had to write a check for pizza every Sunday night. So it's just, or if you wanted cash, you had to go to the bookstore in your dorm where they would cash checks.
Or do you remember the Encyclopedia Britannica?
Oh, for sure.
And now
Actual
today,
books,
I had to read about polar bears, and today it's just Google. It's like YouTube, right? Like you just get sucked into the YouTube algorithm, and there's some things I think were better about it back then, and some things I think we're still trying to figure out now about new ways of things.
Yeah, but no one person is going to change that. So you either learn to work with it or get frustrated. So working with it's usually easier. So.
I like to say I have the wisdom to know what to and not do with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, I'm super glad, and I think you probably are too, that there was no social media when I was in college.
Nope, no.
And I'm super glad about that. Like looking back, like the things that would have been on social media that I'd have to purge now, it's like, I had this great period where I think I got Facebook when I was like 27 or 28. So I was mature enough to handle it.
So I got Facebook in my 50s, and of course I founded a Facebook group of insurance agency owners, and then now it's become a full-time business. And I tell people, when I explain that to people who don't know, they say, well, oh my gosh, you're all over social media then. I'm like, I don't really care for social media. I really don't. It's got its benefits, but boy, there's a downside that I just don't care for. So, but I do business on it. And that's really what I do mostly, is more business than probably 95% business and 5%
I'm with you
personal.
on that.
Yeah, I'm just that way. There's tons of people who are 100% personal, and that's fine. It is social after all. So anyway.
You learn a lot about people from social media, and not always the things you want to learn.
Sometimes too much. Yep.
If you're hiring, it's a great tip to go make sure you're checking out the social media because you can learn an awful lot by a little cyber stalking.
For sure. You can know their entire diet, morning, noon, and night, and
political beliefs,
all the rest. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So work history. You started at one point to work for a company called Astonish. What did you do with them?
So I was employee 13 there. We were still in mortgages actually when I started with them, and then mortgages crashed in the 2008 time frame. And they had started getting into insurance with one client inside of Massachusetts, Paul Murphy. And they just decided when mortgages were crashing, they were going to go into insurance. And so it was really the first CRM tool. So before InsurTech was a word, right. Like it was email marketing and pipeline management, because the management systems at that point, and they still are kind of today to some degree, were just filing cabinets, right? Yep. So you didn't know a closing ratio. You didn't know how many leads were coming in. And the internet was really taking off where, we could get a website to rank first on Google for auto insurance in, a week, because there was just no competition, and it was very young and early then. And so it was like a lot of the things that you see today, there was the first generation back then. And that company got sold to Zywave eventually and broke off on my own at that point.
Okay. So what did you do for Astonish?
So I started their client services division. So each agency had like a dedicated rep to help them with like closing strategies, marketing strategies, email campaigns. So kind of like your own like little mini marketing rep, and each one had 20 to 30 clients that they'd be working on. And we had a lot of idea of like getting community together. And then eventually I ran that team between Florida and in Rhode Island, and then moved into the training division, because what we learned, Dave, was that we could generate leads coming into an agency organically on people's websites, and that lead would come in and it wasn't getting closed. So people were always fighting ROI, right? So we would record all the phone calls coming in off the website line and find that like you'd pick up the phone and say, "Hi, I need to quote my auto insurance." And they'd be like, "Well, Susie's out until tomorrow. Can you call back tomorrow?" Yeah. And that's kind of how business was done. I hate to say it, or it would be like, they were used to referral business. And so this kind of new type of opportunity was difficult. So we would actually come into the agency and do a mini assessment and help them get set up for digital opportunities. Okay. And that's where I started getting into sales training and retention training and, how to cross-sell, all those things, by saying, hey, there's some deficiencies in the agency, and how can we get them to be modernized for today?
Okay. So when you left Astonish, was it because they sold?
It was a little beforehand. I'm super upfront. Like they had taken on private equity, and the company was going in a different direction than that was in my heart. We were really trying to become a SaaS company, which is heavy technology, no people. And I know the industry, and I know that people still run this business, and we can go as technology driven as we want, but there's still a people component. And so at that point I said, hey, I'm going to go off on my own. And they were relieved because I could take their training contracts. They knew they were going to get sold, and they knew who was ever going to sell them didn't want the training division. But they had contracts. So I was able to work it out where I could take and facilitate those contracts as a third party, and that's what got the company started.
Okay. So what you were doing at Astonish was an easy follow-in to start APP. You're
Yeah, I
doing
loved it.
a lot of the same things, correct?
Yeah, very, very, but in a more modern time, right? So that
Right.
was 18 years ago, and today things have picked up a lot, but there's still so much, right? Like you walk into an agency and you say, well, how many cross sells did someone do this month? And they're like, well, we don't know. Or
Hmm.
what's your retention rate? High.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Hi.
is that a number?
It's
You
pretty
know,
good.
or yeah, and I think that's what you guys do at IAOA. So IAOA is so good. Is before IAOA came on the map, you went to your state association, but you're around all your competition. Am I going to really like talk to the competition about how I can't find people or how I think my retention rate's not good? No, you go to the state associations and everyone's like, "We're doing amazing, growing, huge contingency checks, amazing." But you guys can come to IAOA and be around people that aren't in your backyard to learn from and be a little bit more open and transparent. And that's what I love about what you
Hmm.
guys do.
Hmm.
Is it brought people together that were like-minded that maybe didn't always fit that state association mold.
Right. Yep. And a lot of our members also support their associations.
A hundred
You
percent.
know,
It's a
many.
different vibe, right? Because we get paid to
Yeah.
speak at them too, and
Sure.
you go there and it's just a different vibe. And but that's very needed to be local and deal with legislative issues in those states
Yep.
too. It's
Yep.
not. I think both is the key, and you make a great point there too.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, they serve a great purpose. They have for a long, long time, and it's not things that we care or want to duplicate. It's just that we are, like you said it really well. Um, you can go talk to your peers and get opinions on virtually any topic. I mean,
Hmm.
virtually anything to do with running or operating an agency. And you name it, from carriers to vendors to employees to producers to compensation, anything you can imagine. And you don't, for the most part, you don't have to worry or risk about having any repercussions, or just have an open discussion with your peers. How have you been doing it? And that's really why I started the group, because what happened, and told this story 1,000 times, but if that, I went from the captive world. I've been in the insurance agency, the insurance industry, right out of college. 44 years next month, and 34 of those years, 33, I was on the captive side. I worked for a carrier. I had 2 All-State agencies. I had a State Farm agency, and that's when I finally got the release on life. Was when State Farm told me this isn't going to work out for us or you. So they kicked me to the curb, and that's when I went independent. And that was over 10 years ago now. And so I felt like I got a new lease on life. But I created this group because, okay, this is my 4th agency. I know how to run an agency for the most part, but, now I have more than one mouth to feed in terms of carriers
Yeah,
and all kinds of other aspects.
technology. You have to pay.
Technology, yep. So that's why I created it, was so sure I could call an underwriter, get an answer. I could call my carrier rep, or I really wanted to hear from my peers, the
Yeah,
folks that are doing it in the trenches with me, just like me, every day, and have the same types of challenges and successes that I hope to see, and collaborate and share. And it turned out, you know what? There's a few other people that felt the same way, and today we're over 9,000 members, and 100% of those are agency principals or owners, and majority of them are on the P&C side of the market. But we do have some life and health guys, but majority are P&C.
yeah,
And I had a P&C retail agency, so I still do today, but not retail. But that's why we started a group. I really wanted to get, so I did it. I tell everybody I did it selfishly because I wanted to get my own questions answered. And it turned
yeah,
out the folks that I'm getting my questions answered from wanted the same thing. So it turned out to be just something I did it by accident. It wasn't anything created on purpose. It was a complete accident. We didn't grow very fast at first. You weren't there the first year.
Well, you guys were in Orange County, right? With
We
Danny.
didn't even have sponsors or exhibitors or
I think it was like,
vendors.
was it like 25 people had like a little
You
weekend
heard the
meeting?
story. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
Saturday workshop. We call it a
Yep.
business workshop, and 27 people showed up. They were mostly, because I was in Arizona, they were mostly from the West Coast.
Yeah.
The furthest away we had was James Brown, came from Texas. And, of course, Brandon Smith was the one who suggested it, and he lived in Montana. So, but majority were in California, Arizona, out of those 20-some people. And from there is when it really started to take off. I got partners. We created an LLC and decided to do a conference and bring on a partnership program and all the other things we have today. So, but this isn't about me today. This is about you. So let's talk about agency performance partners. So you had this vision when you left Astonish that I love what I do. I love the training aspect. I love working with agencies, primarily independents, right? Or do you work with captives at all?
We have like a couple, so it's interesting because that captive world has changed a tad bit. You know, the nationwide breaking up,
Right.
and then you could debate even some Erie agencies are like semi-captive because they have
And
89
Mercury too in California for sure.
Mercury. So we've the reason we primarily focus on independent is the captives a lot of times have to get us approved by like all the higher ups. And it's a little bit more complex, and they're not 100% in charge, as you know, of what they can and can't do all the time.
100%. Yep.
So we have, intentionally we have some relationships like with farmers and some stuff like that but more like with the corporate offices of, hey, if you want training, here you go. These are people that can go to. But
Right.
I'll be honest, my heart's really on the independent side just because I just see, I think the thing that hits me the most today is like the bulk of people in an agency are the frontline staff, right? Like
Right.
answering the phones, doing the service work. And I don't know really where they would go to get developed, right? So, and in insurance, we have this thing like, well, they're the service team. They just do service. I'm like, well, your service team is managing millions of dollars of your premium. Your money is in the service once you grow.
Right.
And as you know, if you start a couple agencies scratch, the first couple of years are sell, 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 sell,
That's all
sell.
you can do. There's nobody to service. Yeah.
Sell or die, right? And then all of a sudden, all these problems start creeping up, and it turns into I have to be a growth agency and manage sales and service. And that service side has a lot of holes in it if you're not running a tight ship.
Right.
There's a few profit leaks that might pop up.
There's more than a few. Yeah. And so that's where you come in.
So we're
So,
trying to, yeah.
yeah. So do you cater more to larger agencies, mid-sized, small?
Yeah, so I would say like our consulting product where you work with one of our 4 coaches that are out on the road, probably to be in that bracket, you're looking at about 15 employees because we like to say more people, more problems. And so when you have 15 different personalities, if they don't have processes, procedures, auditing, structure, coaching, guess what happens?
Right.
They're running 15 agencies underneath your roof the way that they want to do it. And then we have online programs for some of the other agencies. So if you love what we're saying, you can get it and do it yourself as well. And we have some large agencies on the do-it-yourself program because they have managers and everything else. They just need the content. And then we have some smaller agencies that make the investment in working with a coach because they really want to get to that bigger level. But we like to say we're probably too small to have an operations manager, but have enough people that training really makes a big dent. If it's 3 people, it's not as necessarily as robust as what we do because you really want to get a whole group of people together.
So now you started Agency Performance Partners, what, about 10 years ago?
It'll be 10 years next June. So we hit 9 this year. So it'll be 10. Yeah.
9 years. Okay. So in the last 9 years in this industry, what has changed the most from your viewpoint?
Well, right now this hard market is kicking people's butts.
44 years. I've never seen anything like
They
this.
they actually say it's not been like this for 75 years, and we're probably going to be in this for 3 to 5 years. So it's a long game for sure. I mean, your carriers are posting losses that are so heavily. A very big carrier just posted 118% home loss. So, it is a business still, and they have to make money, but it's now everywhere. And so to me, the goalpost has changed, and agencies are still trying to apply what they did 2 years ago. Like a great example of this day would be, okay, so we contact people when their rates go up over 8%.
Right.
Whose rates went up under 8% this year? Nobody's,
No one
right?
I've heard of.
And the game has now changed from hey, congratulations, you got a renewal.
Yeah. So for those that don't understand, 8% for many years was the threshold. If your premium goes up at renewal time less than 8%, we don't go out and shop the market for something, that's going to get you down to 3% or something. It's just, it's not worth moving you from one carrier to another. So 8% was the threshold, or 10%, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Florida might have been 15.
Yeah, there's exceptions. But today, 20% is good. Like you said, you're lucky to get a renewal no matter how much it went up. And I've heard all kinds of stories, from tons
And it's
of people.
personal, it's commercial, it's
Yeah.
every product, it's every company, really.
Yeah.
And now we're hearing personal lines companies are pulling out of raters, which is going to make things really interesting.
'Cause
In order to quote,
they're slowing down new business. Yeah.
there's no reinsurance in America, so Europe has pulled out of backing us, and it really the other scary thing is the economy is very fragile. So carriers are now rating property out 5-6 years because it was so underrated. They're trying to get ahead of whatever's to come to some degree, but just like when COVID hit, and that was a whole different change, right? Where agencies had to figure out real quick how to operate in COVID times.
Right.
There's opportunity in this market, and I mean real liquid gold.
Huge opportunity, yes.
If you're ready for it, if your people are ready, if your processes, you have to be really thinking about your retention game now. Your new business markets are going to be slim. You're only writing good stuff. So I had this thought, like, what if you put all your producers on saving cancellations and you put your account managers on new business, because it's all clean, right? It's not if you can get a good quote and it's clean, it makes sense. It's signing a piece of paper. But the agencies that built trust before this market, and you build trust by being proactive, you build trust by educating, you build trust by doing the right thing, will prevail and grow dramatically during this market.
And you're talking about trust with your clientele.
Trust with your clientele.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of agencies spent a lot of time building trust, right? They sold it. People needed something. They called in, and we rode renewals because times were good. Nobody, market wasn't crazy. And the agencies that were doing proactive renewal calls, automating email contacts, having a claims process that go the extra steps are going to grow. And those agencies are going to have opportunities to buy agencies at rock bottom prices.
Right.
So the market was so hot to sell when interest rates hit 7%. Private equity is not trying to buy agencies right now. They're trying to clean up the agencies that they bought. So there's a bracket here of 65 to 75-year-old agency owners that didn't sell that they're going to have to try to get out, and their books aren't going to be worth much. I mean, if you have a 80% nationwide book right now, and you want to try to go sell that on the market, guess what that looks like?
I don't even want to know, because it's not pretty. Let's put it.
And I'm not
way.
throwing nationwide out, but they had all these agents go from
4
captive
years
to
ago. Yeah.
independent, and so there's going to be huge opportunity for people who are doing the right things right now.
Very good point. So, you've worked with agencies. I'm presuming you've worked with agencies who are on the very, very high end of the retention spectrum. When I say that, we're talking about numbers like 94, 95, 96, 97%.
Yeah, we got a couple at 97.
Yeah, there are agencies that can do that. Mm-hmm. And in my experience in the captive world, most all captive agencies would track around the 85 to 88.
88.
Yeah, in that arena. And so the difference to an agency in revenue between, let's just say, 88 and 97, 9%, depending on your size, it's like going out and sell all the new business you can, except that all you have to do is work with your current clientele to move yourself from 88 to 97. Now, is everybody going to hit 97? No, that's not going to happen.
No.
But
I mean, it's just some zip codes don't hit 97
No.
because it's just an economically depressed area.
I just can't do it. Yeah, that's the exception to the rule. The excellent category, that's like 2%. But for those that you've seen that are in that low to mid 90s, what are you Tell me what you think they're doing right to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, we have a checklist of when we go into an agency of this is how we're going to get your retention to be as high as it can. The first thing is you have new business guidelines. You're not rating everything that walks in the door because you're married to it.
I tell new agency owners that all the time. You can't be everything to everyone. You just
Bad lead,
cannot.
bad client. Bad lead, bad client.
Yeah.
So they don't change when they become clients. So I would say we say you're only going to quote these standards of 100, 300, 250, 500, only package. And you have to get your team trained on how to have that conversation. A lot of times it's not happening because they don't know how to say no to somebody, or they don't know how to ask to say, great, Dave, in order for us to do this the right way, because you shared you want to save a little bit of money, you're a little frustrated you haven't heard from your agent, this is what I'm going to need from you. And they don't control the process. So agencies have a quoting process, not a sales process a lot of times.
Right.
And the other thing we like to tell agencies, which you'll know because going from captive to independent, is there's the carrier, what carriers will write, and then there's what the agency will write. Just because we have a home for it doesn't mean we got to write it.
Right.
So we also encourage them pay in full EFT, like your new business comes in clean. Then the second thing we do is your reshops now have to follow that same standard. So if you're going to reshop these people, they're going to be at this coverage, EFT, pay in full, you clean your book. You need to do renewal reviews, which is getting proactive and contacting your clients because
more so than any time in history, probably right now.
And and this is the thing: the agencies that were doing this 3 years ago and started with us or started working on it, they're like just poised because they've been talking to their clients. But inevitably, when we launch renewal reviews with a client, Dave, and the first thing that happens is, I paid my bill. Why are you calling me? Well, how do you think we're making our clients feel? We only call when they owe us money or there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Does that build trust?
Mm-mm.
No, it boosts. I hope, God, Dave Jackson's calling me. Something must be wrong.
Yep. Don't answer that call.
Versus, hey, great news. I found a discount, or let me tell you about telematics, or any of the other things going on in the world. And not everybody has to have a renewal. Some people won't ever call you back, but you made that attempt out in the universe to try. And the other thing that they do to keep that retention high is they do have automation, right? Happy birthday, happy 4th of July, just something to keep your name in front of people. And Dave, what we find is they can actually grow just by doing this because they're going to get enough referrals, which is the highest good business, to not need to have 5 producers at a 30% closing rate, putting up 25 grand in new premium. Do the math on that. You're not making money on that for a long, long time. But I can get 1 or 2 producers to $50,000 in premium and personal lines by doing good referral work if I'm treating my current customers really well. Right. And I'm part of the community and I'm active. And every agency is different, right? There's some community-based agencies, there's some online agencies. Mm-hmm. All of it's the same. You have to have a standard, and you have to be able to tell Dave Jackson why my agency is best to insure him. And if you want to write growing families in your community, have a scholarship program, have an internship program. Mm-hmm. Think about it. What does a family of 4 with 2 kids that have youthful drivers really need in their life? Mm-hmm. They might need someone to talk to them about what it costs to get those youthful drivers on. Sponsor the football team. Be at the farmer's market. You have to do these things today that are just going to establish those community ties.
Yeah, like you said, trust. You don't build trust without contact. So there's a good friend of mine, and I know agent in the state of Washington who just recently retired. Claudia,
I do know who you're talking about.
Claudia McLean. She's such a sweetheart. So personal lines only agency, and she did a presentation at one of our IAOA conferences about her touch campaign, and her average number of touches per customer per year was 34. And I would challenge anybody listening to this podcast that if you surpass 34, I'm going to send you a really nice gift, because there just can't be that many people out there who are doing it.
No,
like that.
And she would do great ones. She would send $2 bills out and say, donate this to a charity of your choice. Right. I'm on her list. And she would do our renewal review calls. She followed our renewal review call strategy. but yeah, I mean, newsletters, and she would be at every community event, and just the most gracious, loving human you could ever imagine.
Right.
Like, I can't imagine telling Claudia I would cancel my insurance. Like,
I know.
I would be like, whatever it costs.
Yeah, I don't want to have to make that call. You know?
Like I'd have to be moving, and like I'd probably like I'll keep something here just for this.
And even if you did, for whatever circumstance, she'd be so gracious about it. Oh my gosh, we're gonna miss you so much, and like, okay, I'll stay. I could just see it happening like that. I know.
Well, and she's also a great example. I mean, her book was personal lines. She's like, I just know personal lines. I don't get into stuff that's not my level of expertise.
Yeah.
And, she really kept it 98% of her book to personal lines just because she felt like that's what she could do the best at.
Right. So, yeah, if you're out there listening and you're just trailing along at 88%, there's so much revenue you could put in your pocket if you just
Well, and I would also,
learn.
Dave, I think if you're at 88%, ask yourself how much of your resources are spent towards new business versus your current customers. Because I see it be very, very flip-sided a lot of times. So much is spent on new that we forget that there's this asset to manage.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And so how do they manage it?
Well, I think the first step is we have to understand that, what's the account manager persona look like? Because people don't really think about this.
Right.
So you've got a lot of, and I'm just going to be very generalized, right? There's
Sure.
diversity, but if we just look at cut the middle, you have working moms, right? Mm-hmm. And great people, but they're also they're not trying to get into a career, climb a corporate ladder, because if you're an account manager, where do you go from being an account manager? You either manage your friends or you go into sales because you're gifted at that, right?
Right.
So you're in somebody who wants a job. They want to come in, do a good job, and go home. Mm-hmm. And then most of the account managers are sweethearts. They're people pleasers. They like calm, cool waters. They don't like to give people bad news. They want to celebrate the new vehicle. And then a lot of times we're asking them to do things that are out of their comfort zone, such as call people and tell them their rates went up 22%.
Right.
Now, if you were making $45,000 a year, let's just say, how excited would you be to call 10 people a day, Dave, and tell them their rates went up 22%?
Not fun.
Not fun. And by the way, now where the producers get commissions and everything else, what do we give the account managers generally as bonuses and rewards?
An attaboy.
It sometimes even, right? Or
Right.
Why did this person leave? Did we reshop them? And so I think we just have to understand that we have to unlock what's important to them, and a lot of times that can be time off. That can be, celebrating their kids. Like the best way to get to an account manager, Dave, is know their kid's got a little league game. Tap them on the shoulder at 2:00 and say, "Why don't you leave and go celebrate your kid's little league game?" Come in the next day wearing the team colors. Did you win? Buy the kids pizza. But these women are working for their families first and you second.
For sure. So, without a doubt, one of the number one issues, not just in our industry, and not just because of COVID, but everybody says finding good people is really difficult, more than ever. What's your advice, just in general, from what you've seen in the industry, in our industry? What's your advice as to where to find the good people?
So I'm going to start probably backing the train up a little bit. Clean your house first.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so what are you offering them? That's going to be different. People are still sticking a job posting out. Account manager must be licensed, must know Applied Epic, must know these carriers, likes customers. Well,
That sounds
Dave,
like
I've never
from
had to
1999.
And I've never had to look for a job in my whole life. When I was ready to move on, I made a series of phone calls, or I had people calling me. And so the good people aren't trying to leave by an Indeed posting. Just like you tell your producers, you need to be at carrier events, you need to be networking. But when I say clean your house first, do you have job descriptions? Is there an incentive plan? Are you tracking metrics? What's your culture like? What are the expectations of this role? Too many agents hire out of desperation, not preparation. So they hire because somebody left, and it's like, you can fog a mirror and you have a license, when can you start?
Right.
And so I like to say that I think in this industry, personally, I would rather build an account manager than get an industry retread.
Yeah. I was always willing to hire for attitude and train.
Yep.
Much more than find somebody automatically who's just, like you say, can breathe, fog a mirror and has a license.
But you know what's funny? We're not good trainers in this industry because we didn't do the work inside our own house. We don't have the procedures written down. We don't have the processes. And then we take our workhorses that we're pummeling with work, who are crispy and burned out, and say, train somebody. Well, Dave, if I've been doing something for 20 years, do you know how hard it is for me to stop and train someone green that doesn't know where the apostrophe is in workers' comp?
Right.
Like it's two different worlds. Or I sit with Dave, then I sit with somebody else, and they're doing it two separate ways, and a new person gets confused, and they last 9 months, a year and a half, and then they leave because we really didn't do our job mentoring them.
And then you're on the retread mill just churning employees, bodies.
And then you hear what you just said. I can't find anybody. And I always like, well, so what do you have job ads out right now? No. I don't have job ads out. Okay. Have you gone all the carrier events that are coming up to network and see who's going and try to poach somebody? No. That's over my golf day. And I'm like, well, where do you think you're going to get these amazing qualified people?
Right. If you're not amazing yourself. Yeah.
And I think we also address compensation in agencies. I mean, there's a wide variety of people overpaying people and then way underpaying people. And I'll tell you this, I would rather be top of the line for the best people than try to scrape pennies together for people who, are not going to be the best fit. If you can, overstaff and overpay.
Yep, great advice. And I think people hear that, but they don't really know. Like you say, they're just so strapped that I can only pay $38,000 on a small bonus, or some whatever relative amount that's just not the top of the pay scale for that.
Well,
area.
Or that's what it's like. I got paid $38,000 when I graduated college in 2003 as my entry level job. Now I had a college degree and everything else, and things have changed, but we have to keep current with the times, or you have to be thinking about work from home. You have to think about some of the other benefits. I'm an advocate because knowing that account manager persona, if your agency is big enough, it takes you to get big enough a 4-day work week of 4 longer days and a day off.
For sure.
I think if you can get to a 3-day weekend for account managers, again, and there's a lot to unpack there, but I think that you could dominate and get almost the best account managers in your community.
Interesting. That's very interesting. So one of the next things I want to ask about, we've talked about a lot of this already, but this is specific a program that you with APP has launched called Hard Market Heroes. Let's talk about Hard Market Heroes because I know this is like a serious passion for you right now.
Yeah. So back in February, I started getting burned out myself, and that's not very common. And I was like, what's going on? But every meeting I went to, everybody had bitter beer face. I'm like, guys, yeah, it's a hard market, but who cares? You got to keep going. You keep going. And I realized I needed to think differently. This market was like a black cloud because nobody really knew what was going on, and it hadn't been really defined. It's kind of like early days of COVID. This thing is happening, and then it's now it gets a name, and there's lockdowns. It's I think somewhere around March, it probably was we are in a hard market, and it had a name and it had some guidance on it. And so we started just thinking to ourselves that there's all these people out there that have to deal with this, and agency owners can come to IAOA and talk about it. But what about the frontline staff? Because guess what, Dave, the carriers are not going to give this training because they're part of it, right? So they are staying away from this thing like a 10-foot pole, right? Hey, we're marketing for profitability. We're not going to really tell you what to do, but here's the 12 documents you got to get to us before we'll quote it. It'll take about 7 days. So, and if you're an independent agent, that's great. You got 3 or 4 of these companies doing this, but how do we keep our team happy? How do we not remarket? So our projection is it's going to be 3 to 5 years, which means I can't reshop you this year. I got to hold my remarket as long as I can, because whatever company I put you with now, guess what's going to happen to them next year because they're going to be taking on too much business. I'm just going to bounce you from company to company to company, and those inspections are coming back rough. So we're really trying to encourage people to understand rate's not the boss of us. The rate is the rate. If people go shopping, the rate is the rate down the street too. Nobody's different anymore.
That's
The
right.
differentiation is your service, your confidence, your morale, the fact that you're going to call people. There's a whole different game being played right now. And we wanted to give account managers in particular, because they're not salespeople, the confidence to have the conversation about rate without flinching. I saw a carrier in Texas announce the rate increase of 29% on auto. What does that do to your staff when they get that email from the carrier?
Oh my gosh, they want to hide under the desk.
Yeah, or they're typing up their resignation notice because for what they make in a lot of agencies, they can go down, they can be a Walmart greeter potentially and have a lot less stress. Or they could go to a nice little office job and take calls at the dentist's office and have a lot less stress. And so we're trying to give agency owners tools too, saying your market is hard, which means you're bringing more premium. You have to figure out how to give hazard pay or how to give bonuses. You have to distribute the wealth here because your team their battery is going to be real low every day. And if you're walking around also stressed about the hard market, you just gave them permission to be too. So we're trying to just insert into people the idea that this is an opportunity, not something that we should all be victims of.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. We talked about it before where you said this is a huge opportunity in this market. So,
Huge.
but when you're dealing with the rate increases and the employee morale and all of the other, tell people one last time, why should they look at this as an opportunity, this market?
Yeah, I will say this, because of all the things we just talked about, your competition's short-staffed. Your competition has not focused on technology. Your competition out there is not investing in things like listening to this podcast potentially, right? So there's 9,000 agencies in IAOA. There's about 40,000 agencies in America. So there's 1 out of 4 that are doing what you're doing, right?
Right.
So you need to realize that you're in the elite and it's time to crush the competition, because if I say the competition down the road is 3,000 clients, well, if their average turnaround time is 3 days to get a phone call back, you need to crush that. People are going to pay more for their insurance no matter what in this market. If they're going to pay more, they want good service and they want to feel heard and kind, and they need to hear about these things. And so if you're thinking about this as an opportunity, then your team will too. There'll be difficult conversations, but people take the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance is staying with you as long as they remember that you exist. Because when we put people on EFT and auto pay and everything else, the renewal comes from their company. It doesn't come from your agency name. Right. So if your clients can't say, my agent is Dave Jackson or Dave Jackson Insurance, and they think that they're with Travelers or Safeco, that is your biggest problem that you need to solve. They need to know that you exist so that they can keep their insurance with you, not think that you took the money and now they're nowhere to be found.
Right. So 34 touch points a year for each client.
34 touch points a year. And yes, there's a lot of challenges, but guess what? You need to be a wartime CEO right now. It's easy in peace times. And you know what cracks me up, Dave? We thought we had it so hard 3 years ago. Everyone was stopping and signing.
That's so funny, yeah.
And they're like, it's so hard. I'm like, is it? And then this hits. It's like, give me back 2 or 3 years ago.
So true.
And the other thing I'll say on the staffing front, there was a lot of private equity mergers that happened over the past 2 years, and the dust is settling. Yes. And now in a hard market, it's like, remarket this book. This is going to this service center. They're optimizing those books. There will be good talent out on the marketplace if your eyes and ears are open to it, that want to come back into more of that hometown agency feeling versus corporate. But you need to be riding that wave, and you need to have the bandwidth to hire somebody very quickly if need be.
That's a good point. So like you said earlier, it's not the rate. The rate will be the rate no matter what. It's all the other things you do in your agency to excel over the competition, the other 3/4 out there who aren't doing what you're doing.
And if anything, you'll have more money through premium increases to start doing some of this stuff. Right. That's the benefit of this industry. It's not, okay, so you lose a client, but your rates went up 25%. Like, you're still growing this year. Right. And
not
maybe
in terms of PIF, but in terms of premium and revenue, yeah.
And you could be if you were working your current book, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you still could be hitting PIF And by the way, this would be the market where you donate the clients you don't want to your competition. Get rid of the blood-sucking time vampires. Don't remarket them. Run them off your book right now.
Man, we could probably sit here and talk about hard market for hours and hours and hours, because there's just so much that so many agency owners need to know so that they can take advantage of this market in this time. And do what you've just said. They can take over the competition with the better employees and the better processes and procedures and the better culture and everything they have within their agency to make doing business with them the primo experience that you can't get down the street or online or anywhere else. So, Kelly, I can't thank you enough for being on with us today.
My pleasure.
You could spend days and days, I'm sure, in an agency. Just about every agency talking about something where they can, help themselves make improvements and lead themselves to even greater success. So we want to thank you for sharing what you have. And lastly, how can people, if they want to, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, our website's Agency Performance Partners, and I'll tell you guys, we have over 700 blogs now on our website. I think we're at over 500 YouTube videos. So you can even just go check us out there, a little bit about our vibe and our style. And Dave, if I can just leave everybody with this, I just want to encourage everybody, up your standards on your staff. So I like to say we put up with a lot of staff sometimes out of desperation that's not our ideal team members. And the pleasure I get of working with agencies, I just came back from one that's been on our 2-year program. They turned over 12 team members.
Whoa.
In 2 years. They have 15 people.
Okay.
And you know what? We sat down at dinner and said, you know what? We don't miss a single one of them because they leveled up the quality of their staff and the buy-in and not having the eyes roll and not giving pushback. And now we've got people that were like, awesome, we can get our clients on a mobile app. That's amazing. How? As opposed to, well, it's another thing. Why are we changing? You set the vibe and the tone, and just like we talked about, just because you have a carrier that will write something doesn't mean that we should. Just because they've been with you for 10 years doesn't mean that they're going to be with you the next 10 years. You got to pick your people, and that's why I think, Dave, you probably agree, like to build people as well, because they get that mindset that you have down.
For sure. Boy, that example is one heck of a commitment from that agency owner to take their staff almost 100% flip in a couple of years. But boy, when somebody points a finger at you and you got to take a hard look at what you're doing and say, change has to happen or we're doomed. But look where they're at today. They're poised, like you just said, to take on the world. And they're just gonna take off exponentially, I'm sure.
The owner said, he's like, I love coming to work again.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a really good feeling for you.
Yeah.
When you work with somebody and they tell you that. That's why you do what you do every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks again.
You so much, Dave.
You're so welcome. Thanks, Kelly. Our listeners will get in touch with you when they need your help, and almost all of them do. So they need to get a hold of, at least at the very least, like Kelly said, check out their website, agencyperformancepartners.com, and on YouTube for all their videos and blogs that they have, and take advantage of at least some of that for free. And then get a hold of Kelly if you need her services frontline. So thanks again, Kelly. Enjoy your weekend. Take care. Dave. This is Captain Dave signing out. Take care, all you Collabcast listeners.
Thank you for listening to Collabcast with IAOA with Captain Dave Jackson. Production and distribution by Podsquad.fm, Riverside.fm, and Spotify for podcasters. Special thanks to Little Dog Social Media, Terry Champion, and all our guests and listeners. If you're an independent insurance agency owner, please subscribe to our podcast weekly. You can also request to join our agency owner exclusive Facebook group, IAOA, or Insurance Agency Owners Alliance at IAOA.com. Captain Dave Jackson signs out from sunny Hendersonville, Tennessee.